Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Finding Me and the ITV networks. Today with Professor Santiago Slabodsky, and we're going to be speaking about liberation theology and the way in which the different theologies have come together to advance this notion of liberation, of fighting for freedom. Professor is a director of Jewish studies in New York, and he is visiting South Africa and has very graciously afforded me this time. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, and thank you for being here, Professor.
It is my pleasure, really.
Okay, so you have introduced a new concept to the whole idea of decolonization, and that is liberation theology. So firstly, what is theology and why liberation theology?
So first of all, thank you very, very much for the question. In the 16th century, religion has been used both to dominate and also as source for resistance of people. From the very beginning, Christian Europeans have been said that some people don't have history and don't have religion. Not having religion meant that these people are not going to be safe. So they are presenting colonialism very altruistically, saying we are going there to save them. Of course, through the process of saving them, they pillage their resources and they inferiorize them. In certain hierarchy, we are still living. So these people who are negating having spirituality, having religion, are Africans who became captive and later on they made up slaves, natives in the Americas. Later on, Africans itself started in the 19th century with the conquest. So religion has been used throughout the last 500 years, both as a way to legitimize power, but also as a way of resistance. From the very beginning, when religion has been trying to impose an only way of thinking and believing, some people have been resisting. Some of them have been using their own aboriginal traditions, saying we do have a spirituality and we are going to rebel with this. Some people have been actually using Christianity to show the inadequacy of white Christianity to account for Christianity. And some people even took over other religions such as Islam or Judaism as a way to confront colonial Christianity. So I would like to say that religion has been a battlefield for colonial and decolonial structures. So it is liberation theology is one of the trends that has been used in order to rebel, to dismantle the system of colonization.
Okay, now you raised a very important concept, and that is you speak about white Christianity.
Yes.
Why is there this notion of a white Christianity? Is there an alternate called black Christianity?
So for a very long time, early on, Christianity should be understood as Christianities. They were different groups, called themselves Christians, with very different ideas throughout. Starting in the 4th century, there was an attempt of universalizing only one way of Christianity and monopolizing it into the Roman state. That has gone through different stages. The Western Roman Empire fell down, but at the same time you have an Eastern Roman Empire. But it was not until the 16th century when Christians in the Iberian Peninsula expelled Muslims and Jews, and they conquered the Americas. And they started to take blacks from Africa, who were made blacks, who were kidnapped, and were made slaves. It was not until this moment in which Christianity began to be universal, not because it's a universal religion, but because it has been universalized
Through conquest.
through conquest, slavery, and expulsion as a religion. So in terms of Islam, Islam was understood as the actual exterior enemy, Jews as the interior enemy. And this is in this moment in which, in the past, when a Jew or a Muslim wanted to convert to Christianity, they were allowed to do it, and they were passed from one way or the other. But it is the moment in which Jews and Muslims, even when converted, are going to be suspect of actually not being truthful Christians. In this way, they started to build what we will call today, eventually, an only white Christianity. And the same thing happened when they tried to impose Christianity on natives and Africans. they imposed it, but at the same time they kept the hierarchy standing. So you are going to have a European conception of Christianity, which was very, very well defined by all the theology that, for example, supported the National Party and the apartheid here in South Africa.
And that's why you find in the Christian texts here in South Africa in the Bibles that you are allowed to be dominant over the black people,
Exactly.
things like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, for example, this is exactly the case. The Afrikaners believe that they have a divine mandate to rule over blacks, and they understood, for example, they interpret the Bible in the following way. They say that God was not necessarily a creator, but was a separator. He or she, mostly they say he, separated light from darkness, and the land from the sea, and the man from the woman, and as such they separated black from white, and they put white on top of them. So they started to create a theology of separation that actually is not in the text. Is actually a reading of the text, which is a racist reading of the text. So Christianity, Judaism, Islam, aboriginal traditions by themselves, there is nothing good or bad about them. It is about how in the social context that is being actually exercised. So we are not here to attack Christianity. We are here to put in question Christendom, especially the Christendom that started to expand throughout the world in the 16th century on.
Okay, so what is the difference between Christianity and Christendom?
So Christianity in general is understood as those who follow in different ways the gospel of Jesus Christ. This has been interpreted in many different ways, and there are immense number of trends doing things differently. Christendom is understood as the post-4th century appropriation of Christianity by the Roman nation state. And this Christendom has a long line that will eventually connect them with the conquest of Americas. So but the point is there are many Christianities. And what I show, for example, in this class we are taking together at UNISA, is that Christianity has been a key not only to dominate through apartheid, colonization of the British first, and the apartheid with Afrikaners later, but also a source of rebellion. From the very beginning, there were religious rebellions against the British and Afrikaner power, and later on, during the anti-apartheid struggle, religious discourses and religious leaders have put themselves at the service of the social struggle.
So in other words, Christianity, the religion per se, as it's supposed to be, comes out to challenge Christendom.
Yeah, I would like to say that there is nothing that though I would like to believe Christianity should do that, I would say that there is nothing good or bad about Christianity. It is always about interpretations.
The text,
and
yes,
so there is nothing natural about this. What I'm saying is that Christianity was not the only one rebelling. Islam, Muslims, Jews, aboriginal traditions, many of them were part of a large consultation that took different names
struggle, yes.
in order to struggle together. But the imposition of Christianity was such strong that you are going to have a majority of Christians in South Africa. So this is why religion in general is confused with Christianity, when actually there are many, many possible ways. So Christianity, just to talk about it, as Islam, as in Judaism, can be used both as domination and as liberation.
That's how it's used. And by whom?
By the question of by whom, what are the interests, and what is behind this. In the last 550 years, I would say Christianity has been used to legitimize colonization, slavery, imposition, racialization, and many sexism and patriarchalism, and many other elements. This is not the only Christianity. As in the other way, I would say that today in Palestine, for example, Judaism is being used to oppress Palestinians. There is no question about this. Now, let's not reduce Judaism to Israel, because there are many Jews who are in solidarity with Palestinians. We, because I include myself there, we still have the benefits of what the Israel state are doing. For example, myself, I have no natural connection with the state of Israel besides being a Jew. But if I want to move to Israel from one second to the other, I became a citizen. Someone who was born as Palestinian but needed to live is unable to return to the land. So even when I am in full solidarity with Palestinians, I need to recognize also my privilege I have. But let's not confuse
Yes, I agree.
one thing or the other, because otherwise we are going to be losing allies.
Not only that, I think what is important to understand is that the state of Israel is actually Zionist, and Zionism is a secularist ideology, but is subverting Judaism in order to get support or to legitimize its actions, isn't it?
So there are two possible ways to answer this question. One is to show that actually Zionism is misinterpreting Judaism. The good possibility with this is that you are disqualifying Zionism. Great. The problem with this is that there are two problems. First of all, I am assuming with a lot of arrogance that I know which is the Jewish path. And the second is that I don't take any responsibility for what my people have done. So I take a different path with this, which is that I say, you know, Zionism has been a Jewish path that some people took in Central and ultimately Eastern Europe in the late 19th and throughout 20th century. And they put it in practice probably in the worst way possible.
Okay, so we have to go to a break. I want you to hold that thought. When we come back, we'll raise the conversation further. We'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to the second segment of the interview with Professor Santiago today. And we're speaking about liberation theology. And before we went into the break, Professor was speaking about his interpretation of how he sees the Palestinian and the Israeli question, if I may say so. Okay, so you said that, you know, it excuses, if you take that path, it excuses you from responsibility. So how do you see it then?
So what I was saying here is that I want to say and acknowledge that Zionism has been one path that many Jews have taken in a particular time in history and has been interpreting Judaism in a certain way. I don't believe in this distinction between secular and religious because the way you interpret the text can be changed in time and history to interpret in one way or the other. I would say this is a project that many Jews have actually engaged. It's a project that has some interesting elements and has an awful disastrous practice and had major racist elements between it.
So that's
but
huge.
You know that is extremely hard actually to stand. But now I will not disqualify this as a not Jewish project. I will disqualify this as a wrong Jewish project. So I will say that my project is my project of engage. For example, my work is in Jewish decolonialism and liberation theology, is to engage with other people of the Global South. So I published a book not long time ago, it's called Decolonial Judaism, where there I show that until the 19th century and the 20th century, different stages, Jews were part of the racialization that people in the Global South also suffer. Jews were not the core, were not the unique, they were part of a network of people being called, in this book I call them barbarians.
Yeah, they were oppressed, suppressed.
They were oppressed, yeah. And this oppression many different levels. And it's not good to fall into an Olympics of suffering, thinking who got more oppressed. It's to understand that the racialization happened always in network. And Jews were a part of this network. Jews are not part of the network anymore. But when you think about the struggle against the apartheid in South Africa, and you see the overrepresentation of Jews in the anti-apartheid struggle, you ask why? It's because for a long time Jews have a commitment to social justice that went well beyond their numbers. Now, they had the right commitment. Well, we need to analyze. They were right on some things, they were wrong on other things. But to disqualify Zionism as a non-Jewish project, not just coming to the original thing, would be just very arrogant. I want to say is that I do oppose the practice of the Zionist project and much of its ideology. I do believe that we commit a major mistake. But I am not going to put the blame on other people because I am part of the problem. If I have the privilege, I am part of the problem.
So it's like about recognizing whiteness and white privilege also. It's the same thing in South Africa.
I think you got it very right. You know, we can translate that to South Africa.
Yes,
no?
exactly.
In South Africa, it's the same. Are all white South African to blame for the apartheid? Well, no. Are they responsible? Well, since they actually have the privilege, they have a responsibility.
Some form of accountability.
Exactly.
You know, you raise a very important thing, and that is about contributing to social justice. And I think that all people of conscience, irrespective of religion, simply based on the fact that you have humanity, will contribute to social justice. And so the question has always been that the people who have been persecuted should be the most responsive to campaigns of social justice. And so the question comes about, considering the Jewish Holocaust, how is it that this has translated into the oppression of the Palestinian people? Has the memory been erased, or is there a difference in the Jews that are in Israel today as opposed to those who suffered from the Holocaust? How do you read that?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and there are many answers can be given about this. I believe that I would like to recall Aimé Césaire, the Afro-Caribbean poet and writer, who once said that the Holocaust is the crown of colonialism. What he was trying to say with this? Some people interpret he was saying, okay, that already happened to us. But actually he was saying something deeper, which is the Holocaust is intimately interconnected. There is no way to understand what actually happened to Jews in the Holocaust without understanding the construction of the surveillance during plantations in the Americans with Africans there. It is not possible to understand what happened in the plantation in terms of the negation of humanity without understanding the construction of non-humanity, or I would say the plantations with Africans who are made slaves, without understanding the construction of non-humanity of natives in the Americas. It is impossible to understand the non-natives in American humanity without understanding the expulsion of Jews and Muslims for El Andalus, from Andalusia. And we can keep going and going, because before then, they were already, before El Andalus, Portuguese ships were surrounding West Africa to kidnap people who are made African and considered black, put them captive and made them slaves. So all these sufferings are interconnected. They are not the same, but they are interconnected. So I believe that people who suffer this have a special responsibility, but because they have a special sensibility. But there were two lessons from the Holocaust. The one lesson is never again to everyone, and the other was never again to us. Unfortunately, for a very long time, the latter took precedence. And these are the consequences we had, because unfortunately, the Zionist ideology that came to Israel was embodied by nationalism that emerged in 19th century Europe, that had a major colonial and racial elements. So unfortunately, this has been prevalent, but today people are waking up.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because I've read a lot recently, and I'm listening to a lot of prominent speakers as well. If you look at Gideon Levy, and if you look at Finkelstein, etc., and even Phyllis Bennis, speaks out quite prominently about this, and to say that there is a shift in the mindset, especially of new young Jewish individuals born in the US or away from the state of Israel, who are now exposed to different sources of knowledge, different media, etc., who are beginning to question the whole Zionist project.
But let me tell, I won't accept Israel. There is a growing Jewish community in the last place you will imagine, Berlin, Germany. And who are these people? Are mostly Israelis who really gave up. Are mostly progressive, leftist, decolonial Israeli Jews who are leaving the country because they don't want to be part of this.
Leaving Israel.
Leaving Israel.
Wow. I didn't know that.
That is. The numbers are very, very clear. There is emergence of very, very young, progressive Jewish Israeli, more Israeli than Jewish community in Berlin and other places of the world as well. So I won't say it happens only in America. It's happening everywhere. Why this is happening? There are many factors about this. I think contestation has to do that. Really, unfortunately, the state of Israel has went beyond certain limits that it might have had in the past or not, and the public press actually is taking that over and show it. So people just can't support something that goes so much against their values. But at the same time, that is a wonderful, positive stand, okay? But let me tell you that I am also afraid. My fear is that I'm also sure that people are taking over the issue to defend those who are oppressed, such as Palestinians and many others. Because also we talk about Palestinians in Israel, about black Jews, African Jews, about workers from the Philippines and from Southeast Asia that they are being treated, in inhuman conditions. So there are many people who actually have been suffering there. Not only Palestinians, but Palestinians is the key one. But we need to talk about generally what is happening and the problems there. But and not to forget that throughout this time, Jews coming from Arab countries can also be considered second-class citizens. Really? Completely, and it has major possibilities for this. And also, the first Israeli Jews who tried to dialogue with Palestinians to create a common front were Sephardic Jews. How they call themselves, among many others, the Black Panthers. And you can see Black Israeli Panthers in the 1970s, and now you can see how the Palestinian, Arab, mostly Arab issue, Muslim and Christian, but mostly Muslim, Black Panthers, black in the US, during the Black consciousness movement here in South Africa, and what they consider themselves Black Jews, actually try to gather together to construct a project against imperialism. But let me just get back to today, and my concern is that some of them are renouncing to support Israel, but they're not necessarily supporting the other side. The fact that the other side is losing doesn't mean that this side is winning. So my fear is that
there isn't a viable option or an alternative.
Well, I think there are some alternatives. So the problem is these mostly young American Jews who this attaches them from Israel. They say, I have nothing to do with that. I am not responsible. I am out. There is a minority who is very, very much activist about this. So my fear is that people are going to take away the support to Israel, but they are not necessarily going to put it on the other side. And the process is not complete until you actually are going to support the communities who are in struggle. So it is encouraging, but let me just raise some concern about the future.
Okay, but we're almost at the end, and I think I've just about a minute left. In terms of your studies of liberation theology, etc., what do you think is your most powerful or most optimistic moment that you?
Wow, I think it's the first time people ask me about the optimistic moment. I do believe that we need to think that the struggle against colonialism, the possibilities of true liberation, not emancipation in the European model, but liberation, is not always going to find full allies in our communities. What we need to create is what Professor Enrique Dussel, who is also teaching here, what he referred as a transmodern project, where critical people from each tradition gather, dialogue with each other, learn from each other, and construct a different project. So it's not finishing with this. It's not so much that we need to only look at our communities, but we need to create cross-communal relations in order to build a project beyond Eurocentrism. And I think it is possible.
It is possible, and that is a very optimistic moment. So I'd like to say thank you very much for
My
sharing
pleasure.
this with me. Fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.